either one of these men have a huge amount of knowledge and expertise to share with us for an entire day, but let's try to compress it. So to my left, of course, is David Bianculli, who is the very well-known, well-respected TV critic. Who's heard David on NPR? Yeah?
Yeah.
And Fresh Air?
I can go home now, thanks.
Hope you can recognize that voice. There's Seth Shapiro.
Oh, talk about.
All right. Hey, I'll move over, Seth. All right.
That's such a snazzy
does
entrance.
Does he have a mic?
Literally, yeah. I didn't even have time to do my hair. It's horrible. Literally, just got to thank you. That's very kind of you.
Mic? All right, I'll share your mic. So
Thanks, Brian, for
your
keeping
flight
me
was
close.
late. Thank you for hustling over here. Wow,
Yeah,
what
my
a
flight
mess.
was delayed 2.5 hours. So if you're waiting for somebody from LA, that's why they're not here. Everybody was delayed this morning.
Of course, Seth is co-governor of the Interactive Media Peer Group of the TV Academy. Who's voting? Yay! All right.
Well, it closed yesterday, so you've been cruelly misinformed if you're voting today.
Okay. Thank you for being here, Seth. All right. So the name of the session is called TV Worth Watching, and it comes actually from David's. Oh, wait, I didn't introduce Ben, but sorry. Yeah. This is
We got
Ben Mankiewicz.
sidetracked.
A little sidetracked. Who watches Turner Classic Movies and Ben? All right. So we just had a really great session with Jennifer Dorian, but Ben has taken over the role, of course, from the great Robert Osborne, and we are excited about all of the new things you're going to bring to that channel.
All the new things. I've been there 14 years, but okay.
Okay,
Yes,
have you been there? I guess
it
you
only
have,
took about 7 or 8 years for people to like me. You know, you give me a decade, and I will wear people down.
You know what? Actually, I noticed all the different haircuts that you've had in the past.
Well, they've all been fabulous. Let me stop you right there.
Something's working for you now. So anyway, the theme of this particular session was based on David's great blog or website called TV Worth Watching. And I was definitely very curious about the importance of how do we find high-quality content, how do we recognize high-quality content when we're delivering it on all platforms and people are creating it and people are doing citizen journalism or citizen movies or, you know, it's exploding. It's hard to curate. So I wanted to ask these gentlemen who have written a book about the history of TV just recently, and the name of your book is, where's my screen? Hold on. Actually, we have David's book up first. I'll show you. His book is called The Platinum Age of Television.
This is a great session. My website, my book, and now let's move on.
Well, you got another author over here competing for for the dollar called I Love Lucy to The Walking Dead, How TV Became, I don't have my glasses on, terrific. Right. And the name of your book is?
Shockingly, Television.
Oh, and there you are at the Academy.
That's a horrible book cover. Yeah, so this was volume 1. It's a history. It's a book about the broadcast age of TV, and the one I'm doing now is on the cable age. So it essentially starts with Ted Turner and ends with Ted Sarandos. And then the third one we'll pick up with YouTube and go through VR and so forth. So that'll be the third.
Well, Seth is deeply involved in trying to understand TV across all platforms and what's happening now. Ben, of course, is expert on Hollywood and great filmmaking and things like that. And David, you're watching all of this, all of the above. So what I want to say first is, like I said, we get our entertainment all over the place. I can access it. I can go on YouTube for free and get great BBC documentaries. I do that a lot. I watch TCM a lot. I go on Filmstruck, I go on Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. I have a Raspberry Pi where I access content from around the world, live streaming from Pakistan or India or not that I watch that stuff really, but I mean, you can get broadcast channels live, and it's not illegal, and I can do it. So
over the air?
Over there, and special software. My friend, I can't tell who, oh well, it's a secret, who rigged that up for me. He's here floating around. Anyway. And now, of course, Facebook is getting into the game, investing, from what I understand, about $250,000 an episode, in contrast to House of Cards, which did 4.5 per episode, 4.5 million. So how do we recognize what is high-quality TV? What is classic? What's going to be classic TV, would you say? I mean, Ben, let me ask Ben first, because he comes from the historical perspective. You talk about that every day, but when you watch TV, or maybe I should say, how do you watch TV, and what do you think is classic TV now?
Well, I mean, I watch a tremendous amount of TV, and I review some of it, but it's not even really reviews. These are recaps of shows that we love and celebrate. I mean, you know, we just had Ray Seahorn on from Better Call Saul, who was you know, I think a transformative of actor in an age where, as part of this renaissance of TV, which these guys have written about so eloquently, I mean, the roles for women have changed dramatically, and there wouldn't have been a role like Ray Seahorn's, I don't think, 15 maybe, and now we, you know, if I think it started with The Sopranos, so certainly 20 years ago, I'm not sure we'd have seen a role like that. But, you know, we review these shows like Better Call Saul, and every show is, you know, an A or an A+. I mean, that's what our discussion is. This is part of bringing a community together, much like we do at Turner Classic Movies, and celebrating something together that you feel connected to. So, I mean, the list of shows that will become classics that are on now is long. I mean, between just what I watch, forget that, and I'm, you know, but The Americans, the Game of Thrones, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad. I love Billions. I'm addicted to Billions. Ray Donovan. The list is long, and that's the tip of the iceberg.
Good taste.
Do you find yourself watching, you know, all of these series and things like that, television, or do you find yourself wanting to watch the films? And I'll show you a screen later, but if you look on Netflix, for example, they mix up TV and film and series and things like that. Do you find yourself drawn to watching television?
I mean, I'm drawn
film?
to watching quality content. I mean, I first of all, I spend a tremendous amount of time. Mostly what I watch is the movies that we air. You know, between having to do, you know, I did a 2.5-hour interview with Michael Douglas this year at the TCM Classic Film Festival. It'll turn into a special to air last year, the year before, Faye Dunaway the year before that, Norman Lloyd. So you spend a great deal of time preparing. Just ran past a picture of me and Amy Heckerling, me and Peter Bogdanovich. So when you have these long-form interviews with stars, with in the case of Heckerling and Bogdanovich, directors, you know, you want to prepare for those. So I end up rewatching their movies because I forget. I mean, everybody here who will come up to me, and David and I were just talking and about, you know, some specific scene in a movie that you'll wait a long time for. Unless I've seen that movie in the last 10 days, I cannot participate in that conversation. So I watch a tremendous amount of high-quality content. I almost, in this era where you go on YouTube and there's 1 million hits for somebody opening a pack of Wrigley Spearmint gum, I watch exclusively high-quality content between those shows and the movies that we show on TCM.
David, I'll move this way back to you, Seth. But David, I know that you have commented in the past that you feel that, and of course you have to watch television all day, every day, but I know you've said that you think we might be moving towards the more short miniseries format, that because there's a beginning, a middle, and end, and the actors can go off and take other jobs. I mean, do you think that these classic shows that you're watching right now, where we're binge watching series upon series upon series, like I just started the new Twin Peaks and so on and so forth.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to check that out. But do you think
you were excited about it in your book?
I was
you
very
talked
excited.
about the fact you were really looking forward to it.
Very excited about it. Very excited about it. More excited about it. I don't know if I'm on.
You're on. You're good.
Oh, I'm on. I was more excited about the return of Twin Peaks than anything else that was on the calendar this year. And then I saw it. I'm halfway through so far. It's almost at the halfway point, and it hasn't begun yet. So I really want it to succeed. I really want it. And there are wonderful moments in it, but there are many other moments that aren't wonderful. Watching a guy sweep a floor for 3 minutes while I hear green onions is not great television to me.
So when you're looking around, what do you think is classic TV now? That's going to 20 years from now, 50 years from now. Like we watch all these great movies on his channel, screened entertainment, we should be calling it. What's going to be classic TV?
Well, that definition is changing real fast to answer the
High
question
quality
that
TV.
you started with. Yes, I do think we're finally adopting in the U.S. the British model of standalone miniseries that are sort of like novels. So you get 6 episodes, 10 episodes, and it's self-contained, and you have all the drama of not knowing if the protagonists are going to live or not. Fargo, all 3 seasons of Fargo are superb, because you don't know if people are going to live, and they don't.
That's right.
You know, and every death in Fargo hurts me a little, but also makes me happy.
And every death is awful.
Yeah, yes, some more than others. There was actually, not to do a spoiler alert, but this season on Fargo, there was something that I called a roadrunner death, which if you've seen it, you know. But those things are wonderful. But as to what's going to survive as a canon, this is where I get into my get off my lawn old man bitch mode. Is that just a
Bastard mode.
Just a okay, yes, all right. And like once you hear it, you might.
Okay.
But a generation ago, kids came home from school, and the only time they had control of the only TV set that was in the house, other than Saturday morning, was early afternoons, and that's when you would see movies, old movies that they wouldn't have seen otherwise, and then that's when you saw I Love Lucy. That's when you saw The Honeymooners, even though these shows were 5 and 10 years old or more at the time. And so these syndicated local stations were giving us a canon, a syllabus of what mattered in terms of quality TV and classic TV. They weren't doing it to educate and be wonderful. They were doing it because they made money and they had the rights. But everybody had it. Now, one of my jobs is a full-time college professor, and so I use my students shamelessly and ask them questions to teach me. And here's what has frightened me. When I started teaching full-time 10 years ago, there was a holy grail of shows, you know, I Love Lucy, The Honeymooners, Andy Griffith, Twilight Zone. Every kid had seen and was familiar with before I showed anything like it. Now, all of those shows are 50% or fewer. Andy Griffith is almost off the map, and I never even thought of asking this question before, but in one of my classes, just last term, fewer than 10% had seen an episode of the original Star Trek. Yeah. And you think, how is this possible?
They
So
all
in
know
20
Star
years,
Wars. They don't
so
know
in
Star
20
Trek.
years, what's going to last? It depends upon who gets to curate and pass it on now, which is, you know.
That's why I think what, Ben,
Yes.
what you do every day is so vital. And we were talking before this session about the fact that, you know, it was important to me that as a kid that I turn at 4 o'clock to the 4 o'clock movie it was called, or to Chiller Theater at midnight, or to whatever, or various TV shows that would be curated by local broadcaster. It was important that that programming was provided in context to me, and that I ran into it. And that is what gave me the love for the TV that I have. That's how I ran into Star Trek, my favorite show, and all those movies. So I'm grateful to those people. They're the unsung heroes of people who understood from an early time what was classic TV, or what were classic movies.
I thought about this a lot in this new book. So just to throw something out. As David was talking, I was thinking about, there was a piece, I don't remember what it was last week, about long-term parking, which is the season 5 episode of The Sopranos where Adriana gets killed because The Sopranos has actually been off the air for 10 years. And I teach also at USC. And my students all do know that HBO canon. They all know The Wire. They all know The Sopranos. A lot of them know Mad Men, and they all know Breaking Bad. And I do think, so a friend of mine, former boss at DirecTV is now at Amazon, and he bought those shows, right, for Amazon. This is just a personal opinion, but there were a lot of impressionists after you know, Cézanne and Monet and the people that we think about, and they were probably really good. But I do think because of the nature of the time, like, we're on the TV business, and TV is vital, and the Americans, as Greta would have named all the same shows, Americans and Fargo. But there was that moment 15 years ago, I would argue, where TV was the most, TV from this state and from New York was the most interesting cultural thing on the planet, period. And so there are orders of magnitude, right? There's when an art form is hitting on all cylinders. Like, there were a lot of horn players after Coltrane or Miles, and they were great, but we don't really talk about them that much. I mean, it's not popular, but I do think we're there. There's a lot of great stuff, but that period where you still had some artificial scarcity, you didn't have as many distribution channels. The DVD I was involved in the launch of TiVo at DirecTV, and you could see it. That's when 24 happened. That's when serialized drama happens. So the first ones are those that had sort of the thrill of the new. I do think they're kind of enshrined. Like, there's not going to be another 2-season arc of a show at the MoMA the way there was for The Sopranos. So I think that the way that the Beatles and the Stones and the Who and Zeppelin kind of were there at that moment, I think those shows really are good. And just the last thing I'll say about this, you were talking about limited series and miniseries, and this is actually a huge topic at the Academy in the way that awards are structured and what show is a limited series. And I think part of the reason that people are doing exactly what you guys are talking about is because it's new, right? If you can create a completely independent or somewhat independent arc from season to season, you're staking out new ground, and that's why people are doing it. I had a conversation with Charlie Collier actually at the Better Call Saul premiere party about, like, what does he think about doing? And he said, well, maybe we actually have to do short form at some point, because that's where the audience is going.
That O.J. Simpson series did very, very well. I know you loved that.
That was fantastic.
But there was a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it was shorter. So that's the question I was trying to ask.
Well, that's what David was talking about early on. That's the British model, really, that O.J.
Right.
But, you know, what we do at TCM, sort of, and I think that not so much to save these shows, but to make these shows that aren't Deadwood, The Wire, and Sopranos and 24, that moment of peak TV. Context, curation, connection, those are the things that we thrive, those are our sort of marching orders at Turner Classic Movies, sort of we bring you these movies, we put them in context. The connection is both with us and the channel. There is no network on television that connects more with its fans than TCM. I'm a billion%. You might love AMC, but you don't feel connected to AMC. You're connected only to the show. We have that at TCM. And then the curation, what Robert Osborne did and turned into an art form, and what I'm now able to continue. It strikes me that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, there will be added value in curating Breaking Bad, in curating Better Call Saul, because you're going to see these stars come on. I'm doing it when I watch the Rockford Files at home at night with my wife, and you end up on IMDb throughout the whole thing saying, I know that guy, what else has he been on? I think it's incredibly relevant. The guy who's going to win the Rookie of the Year award in the National League this year is a first baseman outfielder for the Dodgers named Cody Bellinger, and he just made news because he doesn't know what Seinfeld is. And there was a reaction of horror to that. I would love to see somewhere before every Seinfeld episode, some guy, perhaps me, some guy, 50 years old, can play 39, with great hair and glasses, could be anybody, spending a minute and a half telling you the origins of this Seinfeld episode, what in Jerry's act made it relevant, here are the stars you're going to see, here's what they had done, here's what they went on to do. It strikes me that there's a market and a usefulness for that, and I think that's our business plan. That's our model at TCM.
That's what I was going to beg for, and I don't have to now.
All right, well, good. Okay.
I would say that there's an opportunity here in the age of television, and I think this is a platinum age, not the golden age, as you stressed, right? This is the platinum age, where people are more interested in watching TV or movies on TV than they are to going to the movie theaters.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about
and
that.
I think that there's something that is important about that. What, as curators, and we don't have a lot of time left, and we could have done, again, 2 hours more, a whole day on this, but as curators, as academics, as sort of spiritual guides, to be California about it, about this content, to what extent do you think the role of the curator is going to be more and more important? I'm feeding you your answer. To what extent can you use interactivity, multi-platform distribution, new ways to bring in what I call, meta content. Like, for example, the Internet Video Archive is here. To what extent do you see more opportunities for you as people who know your content to embrace all of these new interactive distribution, network? I'm a little tired. How can you do better what you're doing today and bring it to new television audiences, millennials, the Gen Z community? What would you love to do today?
I'll give you an academic reason why it has to happen, and then I'll shut up because I know we're running out on time. I was trying to think a while ago of what, there are these titular moments in TV like Ted Turner, we're going to be on till the world ends. What was the one that kind of brought us out of that period that we were in into this incredible multiplicity? And I kind of think it was TCA, Landgraf, and Sarandos, where, so for those of you who are, so John Landgraf, who's kind of considered the mayor of television and runs FX, had said there is just simply too much television. And every year FX Research publishes sort of the definitive count, the tally of the number of scripted shows, which went from 409 to 450 and now over 500. And he said there's just too much TV. And Ted Sarandos, who runs Netflix, or content at Netflix, came out a few days later and said, there's no such thing as too much TV. And I think what's interesting is they're both right. They're talking about almost two different media. And Landgraf is talking about this ultra-curated medium where every show, one way or the other, is designed to be a gem. And every one is designed to be the best in the marketplace at that particular thing. And Netflix is not that. They're trying all sorts of shit. They don't need for everybody to ever watch everything. They've got so much, right? And so somewhere in the middle, there's going to have to be something that brings those two things together, because you've got too many smart people too vested in. It's like one of the conversations that we had actually around the Emmys, and they had it, I think, when Brian was a governor too, is at what point do the definitions of people working in TV change? Like, are the people who create the user interface and the recommendation in Netflix and the TV business? Yeah, they are, because all of that curation stuff and what Ben does at some point becomes the new front end, because the front end used to be NBC, CBS, and it's not anymore. And there really hasn't been something, as all of this stuff has shown up, to take that place of that kind of trusted overbrand. And that's what technology has to do.
In the world of interactivity that we're seeing more and more of, and as I mentioned earlier, Netflix has just introduced Choose Your Own Adventure, where people are going to be curating their own TV experiences. How can curators and people who study this business continue to bring value? What would you guys like to do?
Go ahead.
And how do you discover that classic TV?
Well, my students tell me that they look to their peers to tell them what's coming and what they should anticipate. So it's not like they're going to TV Worth Watching, my website, or they're going to a listing service, or
they don't go to your website? Your own students don't go to your website?
Well,
that's
no.
a crime.
Once they're my students, they go.
All right, there you go.
But the idea is they trust each other. So you have to reach at least one of them so that they will then recommend you as a source. What my website and the writers on it try to do is to be objective, not fanboy, not snarky, and we focus on what we consider the best. That's subjective, but it also gets a crowd of readers and posters who are as passionate about television as your viewers are about TCM, and that's really invaluable. But there isn't too much TV. There never will be. Not too much good TV. It's the rest of it that you've got to learn to avoid, and that's where curators come in.
We're going to need to close, but do you think that that the audiences who are watching all this incredible content out there, do you think that they are becoming, they're going to become, say experts, but I mean, to what extent do you think will come of the audiences that are getting such incredible content today? What kind of new content do you think could?
I think they need. I think that to some extent, and I'm biased, but I think the model that we've created at TCM is a model that is one of the choices that they'll have to make here. That connection that we have formed with the audience is not just because we curate these movies. We have figured out, as Jennifer said, and I'm sure Jennifer Dorian, our general manager, said earlier, and I'll probably butcher it, but the fans aren't consumers to some extent, they're partners. And when you make the fan vested in what you're doing, there's value in that, instant value in that. So, we go out around the country we got various things. We're about to bring TCM to a city near you. We do Fathom event screenings where we put TCM movies, classic movies, up on the big screen, as varied as Casablanca coming up later this year. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? But we also have Fast Times at Ridgemont High coming up. I think that's our next movie. I think it's the end of this month. So it strikes me that there is a way to. I started talking about Better Call Saul because we had Ray Seahorn on, and I'm so taken with her talent. There's a passionate audience for Better Call Saul, and I imagine that they can reach that audience in a way that they haven't thought of. They are limited to, we're going to write a great show, a brilliant show, and Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould are going to run a great show, and we're going to get these actors to say these words, and the actors are then going to do wonders with those words. But there is still a way that they can connect with that passionate fan base that they're probably not doing.
So I would say, to close, that to tie those 2 points together, that the great work that you guys are doing and generating these books and giving people guidance and insight and appreciation for all this incredible content, to some extent, what you're doing and the fact that this content exists, right, this incredible content exists, is creating a new generation of smart, savvy curators. What they're going to do with this content, how they're going to use the multi-platform opportunity and be interactive with it, who knows? But all of you have shown the way, and I hope that you're inspiring all those new curators and thinkers about this great medium of television that I think we are experiencing the platinum age of today. So thanks for your leadership.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
This is Tracy Swedlow, Editor-in-Chief of Interactive TV Today, and you can find out more at itvt.com or more about the show, the conference, thetvoftomorrowshow.com. Speak to you soon.
Rock, 'cause I'm so future shock. Hell man, I just rock. Future shock, 'cause I'm so